Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. We hear about artificial intelligence literally every single day, right? But there is this massive kind of hidden conversation happening just beneath the surface, and it is fundamentally changing how we think about work, accessibility, and true inclusion. So today, we're going to unpack a really fascinating piece of research that asks a pretty critical question. Is AI acting as a reasonable adjustment that actually empowers workers, or is it quietly building a brand new digital barrier? Let's find out. Usually, when we talk about AI, we're totally laser-focused on saving time, right? Drafting things faster, automating the boring stuff, it's all about speed and output. But there's a flip side here that reveals its actual power. Because for a lot of disabled and neurodivergent colleagues, AI isn't just some clever productivity hack, it's a lifeline. It provides vital access to information, it builds communication confidence, and it fosters real independence. We're talking about accessibility here, not just acceleration.
Which brings us to Section 1, Beyond Just Saving Time.
So here is where it gets really interesting. This technology creates a crazy paradox, and this tension has to be at the absolute center of how any organization rolls out AI. Think about it. You could deploy a tool today that instantly removes a cognitive barrier a colleague has struggled with for their entire career. But in that exact same rollout, if you aren't careful, you might build a wall that locks another colleague out completely. We literally cannot just install software and hope for the best anymore. We have to actively manage this.
Moving on to Section 2, Removing Everyday Barriers.
You know how modern workplaces just demand so much of our cognitive processing? Well, imagine asking an AI to take a ridiculously dense document and explain it in plain English, or using it to break a massive project into bite-sized steps, or even restructure a bunch of disconnected notes into something logical. It can even check if an email you wrote sounds a bit too abrupt, or help you get past that terrifying blank page. Now, these practical uses might sound kind of modest, but their cumulative effect, it's massive. By managing that heavy cognitive load, AI enables true equal participation for folks who just process information differently.
And this brings us to a super important legal and cultural point. Under UK equality laws and guidance from ACAS, employers actually have a legal duty to make reasonable adjustments so disabled employees aren't placed at a substantial disadvantage. So when we look at generative AI through this specific legal lens, providing access to an AI tool, along with the right training of course, could absolutely be part of an effective, legally recognized workplace adjustment. Instead of just obsessing over minutes saved on a clock, we really need to see AI as a way to reduce the immense, invisible effort it takes just to start or organize a task. For some people, just getting their thoughts into a standard corporate format completely drains their battery. If we let AI handle the heavy lifting of formatting, it preserves their valuable energy and attention for the actual job, the parts where their unique human expertise and creativity really shine. Bede, let's be real for a second. AI is not universally dependable, no way. If you ask it to simplify a complex legal text, it might just casually leave out a crucial qualification. Ask it to rewrite an email, and it might totally erase your unique voice, or worse, it confidently makes something up. We always have to verify outputs, apply human oversight, and remember that accountability? Yeah, that always rests with the human hitting send.
Now, let's flip the script. Section 3, When AI Excludes. Picture how new software is usually rolled out. It's almost always a pilot program for senior leadership or departments where there's a quick financial ROI, right? But that uneven access creates immediate exclusion. If a colleague without a fancy enterprise license is left unsupported, but they see everyone else benefiting, they're going to feel immense pressure to use unsafe, unapproved public AI services just to keep up. The sad irony is that the people who could gain the absolute greatest accessibility benefit are often the ones completely overlooked in a traditional corporate rollout.
And the barrier isn't just about who gets a license, it's the actual software interface itself. An AI service is not inclusive just because the text it spits out is helpful. The interface has to be accessible. Can you navigate it, which is a keyboard? Is the color contrast good? Does it play nicely with screen readers following WCAG standards? Because honestly, if the front door to the tool is locked, the helpful AI inside is entirely useless to the people who need it most.
Then we run into what's known as the prompting divide. We've all heard the advice, just write a better prompt. But formulating those instructions is, in itself, a really heavy cognitive task that requires technical confidence. If training assumes everyone is comfortable with technical jargon or rigidly forces one correct way to prompt, it actually disadvantages the very neurodivergent people it's supposed to help. It can force them into this standardized corporate voice, stripping away their individuality.
We also can't ignore the cultural barriers here. There's a very real fear among employees that asking for AI access, specifically as an accommodation, will out them, revealing a hidden disability. They worry they're going to be judged as taking a shortcut, or that their boss will think they can't do the job. And this is heavily compounded by data protection risks. Under strict data rules, nobody should ever have to disclose highly personal data to their IT department just to get a support tool they need to function.
So, how do we fix this? Section 4, Designing for True Inclusion.
True inclusion is an ongoing conversation. It is definitely not a one-off assessment just to tick a box. It starts by asking, were disabled and neurodivergent colleagues actually involved in designing and evaluating this service? You just can't assume you know what users need. Inclusive guidance says we have to actively involve disabled and neurodivergent folks in the research, design, and testing. If they aren't at the table when the rollout is planned, the system is absolutely going to have blind spots.
Next up, privacy and policy. We have to ask, can this support be accessed without forcing unnecessary disclosure? Our corporate policies really need to distinguish between actual data risks that need controlling and safe, useful activity that we should be enabling. If a policy just outright bans AI out of fear, without offering any accessible alternative, it is actively reinforcing that digital barrier. We need governance that minimizes data collection while maximizing support. And crucially, are we keeping non-AI routes open? Users have to have the ability to configure their own working methods, and yes, that includes opting out entirely. AI shouldn't become a mandatory hurdle. Whether someone literally cannot use the tech due to accessibility issues, or they just plain don't want to, the traditional avenues for support must be kept alive and fully supported by the organization. Finally, Section 5, a new value equation. Let's get one thing straight. AI is a fantastic tool, but it is not a magic wand. It has to complement our existing inclusive practices. You can't just roll out an AI tool and suddenly announce you don't need to write accessible documents anymore, or pile on unmanageable workloads because, hey, the AI will help. AI does not, in any way, excuse the removal of supportive management, specialist tech, or, most importantly, actual human assistance.
We really need to rethink how we measure value here. Conventionally, we measure things like minutes saved or the volume of words generated. But think about the inclusive metrics for a second. Instead of asking if a task was 5 minutes faster, what if we asked if the colleague completed it with significantly less fatigue? Did they just automate routine work, or are they now working more independently and communicating with way more confidence? These human metrics don't neatly fit on a corporate spreadsheet, but they are absolutely real and incredibly valuable.
That brings us to a total paradigm shift, perfectly captured in this idea. AI shouldn't force everybody to work in the exact same way, just faster. Its much greater promise is enabling different people to work effectively in totally different ways. It's not about conformity, it's about adaptability. The goal isn't to turn everyone into identical drafting machines, but to give individuals the flexibility to mold their environment to suit their wonderfully different minds.
So, I want to leave you with this final, vital question to ask of your own workplace as we all navigate this stuff. When your organization evaluates its technology, are they only looking at the clock, or are they looking at the barriers being dismantled? The choice between building a reasonable adjustment or erecting a new digital barrier is entirely in our hands. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really encourage you to take this exact question back to your teams today.